ونستعينه ونستغفر ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Alhamdulillah, today we're doing Arabic lessons. What lesson number is this?
13.
This is the 13th lesson, 13. Okay? I don't have my pen to write on the board, so we're going to do a review. Because there's a few things that we should always know. The first one is with regards to knowledge. Your knowledge should always be with you. You shouldn't have to go to get something in order to establish a point that you learned. Because something that you learned, you have it. It's with you. Unless you forgot it, and then the reminder benefits the believer. Wa alaykum assalam wa rahmatullah. I'm sorry, ladies, I forgot my pens, so I can't write on the board. But what we can do is this. You have some markers?
Yeah, I have like so many photo markers.
No, I got some at home too.
Okay, well,
But he's gonna be coming.
Oh, he's coming? Okay.
that's good. Jazakumullah khair. Barakallah fikum.
Unless we go down the block and just-
My house, you mean?
unless we go down the block and buy.
Okay, well, we can do that. I got $5. All right. Anyway, let's start with the lesson. Where we at? What are we doing? Come on, guys. What are we doing? No. What are we doing in general? I want a general statement. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. We're doing Ajrumiyya, and what else are we doing?
Basic letters.
Basic letters, master letters. We're mastering the letters in the alphabet, right? Right. What are the letters? Somebody recite to me the alphabet.
Abjad,
Louder.
Abjad, Hawaz, Huddiya, Kaliman.
Is that as far as you can go? Who can go further than that? So far we have Abjad, Hawaz, Huttiya, Kaliman. Hind. Taharraki shway. Now. What's the rest of it? Everybody follow me. Abjad, Hawaz, Huttiya, Kaliman. Sa'fas, Kurishat, Thakhid, Dadig. I'll do it again. Abjad, Hawaz. Don't write, because remember, there are two societies and there are two ways of learning. One way of learning is from a literate society. La tal'ab ya walid. There's a literate society. And then you have the stronger society, which is an oral society. The oral society is always stronger, aqlan, intellectually, than the literate society. Even though in these day and times, they make it appear as though the literate society is stronger than the oral society. Just not so. Okay? Because in an oral society, a child is able to articulate like an adult by the time that child is 7 years old. And this is not something particular to the Eastern lands. This was something that was even in Europe, in Britain. Up until 100 years ago, a child 7 years old was considered adult. Why? Because he was able to articulate. So the art of being oral, being able to articulate, was the gauge of intellectual capability. Okay? But in a literate society, you have to wait until the child gets out of high school for it to be considered an adult. And that is approximately late 17, 18 years old. Right? But still, nowadays, with the 18-year-olds, they're still not worth anything. You know, not worth 12 cents. Okay? For the most part. And this is in a literate society. Okay, so I say all that to say that you should memorize from hearing. You should memorize from hearing. And then your recall, your response ability, you know, will become stronger. Because one of the reasons why our Shaykh Muhammad Salim al-Daddud Shanqiti hafidhullah didn't let people write or record when he was teaching, because it says that it spoils the student. The student now doesn't listen so well because he feels, hey, I wrote it down. I have it on recorder. And when I get some time, I'll listen to it intensely sometime other. But that other time doesn't usually come. But when the student knows this is it, I may never hear it like this again. I may never have this opportunity again. It becomes something that is alive. It becomes an experience worth remembering. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I think what happens here in this literate society, we are like spoiled children. It used to be we didn't have the microwaves. I'm only 40 years old, and I remember there was no microwaves when we were children. If you want, or most people didn't even have toasters. So if you wanted toast, you had to pay close attention to the broiler at the bottom of the oven. Most children now don't even know there is a broiler at the bottom of the oven. And they couldn't wait 5 minutes to toast. They couldn't wait the amount of time. And if you didn't get it right, you burnt your toast and had big butter marks on the toast and these types of things. Now, if you wanted to eat, you had to throw out some food. And whatever you were going to eat, you had to think about it and plan that the day of the morning. And so you had to put the meat out in enough time for it to thaw out. And these types of things had to take place. Now with the microwave, no one thinks about it. So it just comes last minute and the food doesn't taste as good and it usually gets burnt. And there's no real family life. We've lost a lot of the humanity. So likewise, with some of these modern technological advances, we lose something. Here, I don't want you to lose anything, so don't write anything, but pay attention. Struggle and pull from your mind what you've learned before. Someone recite to me the alphabet. You've been studying the alphabet for 13 lessons. The least you should be able to do is recite the alphabet. Why? Because as the mind thinks, one of the things you're supposed to learn in studying is how to outline something. Every time I write on the board, what do I draw? I write diagrams and outlines. A diagram and an outline are basically the same thing. It teaches you the stair-step method of how you should learn this thing. Right? That's what it does. We start off with the word Arabic. What's the first thing we did? We defined what that word Arabic means from the word Araba. And then we said Arabic language. So we defined language by itself, and then as a compound word, the Arabic language, what that was. And by this time, you should be able to say, the language is called Arabic. Languages are these expressions, oral expressions that people use to express, to bring out their desires, their agrad, okay? Whatever they want, they use this language. They're different, but they all have the same objective, right? To express what the inside of the person needs or wants. As it relates to the Arabs, then these are a particular people known for their particular speech. Just like the Chinese are known for gunpowder and food, right? So the Arabs are known for their speech. And other people go on to say that when you say an apple tree, you name that thing for what its benefit is. You don't call it a green leaf tree because it's not known for its leaves. It's known for its what? Apple. So you call it an apple tree. That weed, that long weed that has one seed or like a bunch of seeds at the top, we call it wheat. We don't name it the stem, we call it the top of it, which is called what? The wheat seed. Why? Because we name it for its benefit, what we get out of that thing. Likewise with corn, likewise with anything that you name. Remember what it benefits. So the Arabic people, what do they have that distinguishes them from the rest of the societies? They have, number one, their speech, and the other thing they have is their lifestyle. The lifestyle of the desert. This is what the Arabs are known for. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has favored them in both those two things. In the thing that is yuhimmuna, is important for us, is the language. How did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala favor the language? Here at this stage, 13 lessons, you should know, how did Allah favor the Arabs? By the Quran. What? He revealed the Quran in Arabic. So that means that he put in the Arabic language what is not in other languages. A strength in that language, in the expression of Arab, that is not in the expression of any other Arabic, any other language. So what does the word Araba mean? To make what crystal clear, specifically? An emotion or a sentiment. So the word Araba, literally, in and of itself, means to make something clear, to clarify something, particularly a point, to leave no doubt about an expression, right, or a sentiment. So when you say this is the Arabic language, really what you're saying is you're speaking in a language that leaves no doubt about what was intended, right? Why is that understanding very important from the very beginning? Come on, people, this is not high school. This is university level. You're supposed to take this information. Intelligence is imagination. What is intelligence? Imagination. Imagination runs unrestricted in children, right? But as they become adults, they control it, right? The imagination is the ability to see something that is not there, right? And to use your mind to say, if it were there, what could it possibly do? And then go through the motions with that. And as an adult, this is called intellectual prowess, intellect. Because now you use that, you focus that. As a child, it runs unrestricted, right? As an adult, he controls it and he focuses, just like daydreaming. Adults should never daydream. Why? Because children daydream and they let their imagination run away with them. We say that. An adult doesn't allow his imagination to run away. He controls it. And what does he do? He uses that same quality to reflect. So instead of daydreaming, he controls his daydream and he says, I want to reflect on this issue. And then he uses that quality, that imaginative quality, that intellect, to process that information and to control it. What if I do this? What if I do? Make choices and things like that. So that's what the intellect should have gone to in those stages to get to where we are now. Now I'm saying, why is it important for us as a first principle to define the word Arab and define language and then put them two together and say we define in the Arabic language, and after saying that this means it's a language that leaves no doubt about what's being said, makes a point crystal clear, and then we say this is favored, Allah favored this language and sent it down with it, the Quran. Why is that point important? So we can now understand the point with the Quran. The Quran is what?
The speech of Allah.
It's the speech of Allah. It's not created. But what is it? It's the last revelation. What happened to the previous revelations? Put everything in its context, people. They got what? Distorted. So the language got distorted, right? It was not preserved. People were able to take a statement in other languages and twist them in a way to mean other than what Allah intended. So then what did Allah do? With the last revelation, what did Allah do? He put it in a language that would leave no doubt about what was being intended. So that we would have no excuse. We couldn't say we didn't understand. And Allah says, إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَا الْقُرْآنًا عَرَبِيًّا لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ. We sent down, what does Quran mean again? Guys, hesitation kills. It shows you. See, what does the word dull mean? In English. What does it mean? Dull, you're not sharp. It means that you're not paying attention. I said the talibul ilm is like a church mouse. He's always wary about what's going on. He's listening. That's why we say al-bitna yudhib al-fitna, that the full stomach makes the intellect go away. So you come to class ready to learn. You don't eat too much. You sleep before. You get you a Red Bull or whatever those things, coffee, and you come ready and alive. Because Ibn Taymiyyah and others of them said, Al-Muslimu kayyisun fatinun mutaharrikun laysa mutaqawqi'an balidu dhihni kaslan al-badani. The Muslim is kayyisun, he's slick. Fatinun mutaharrikun, he thinks and he moves intelligently. Laysa mutaqawqi'an, he's not like a snail. And the snail, from two expressions, the snail not only moves slow, but he got his whole house, his whole life on his back. So people got all this stuff, they got it, they got to have this, I got to have that, I can't get, remember that, the guy, the jerk? And he said, I'm not going to go except I'll take this. and then I'm going to take this. No, and he had all these things. He's ثَاقِلُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. He's so heavy on earth because he can't do without things. So the Muslim, he's not like that. You know? Balidu dhihni, dull-witted, stupid-minded, kaslan al-badani, lazy-bodied. Okay? You see what somebody say they're listless? Every time they stop, they lean. Every time they slouch. They got no himma. No himma is character or importance to themselves. So don't be slow. Pay attention and learn these points or you miss the whole issue. Okay? You miss the issue to be alive like that. So, Allah sent the Quran down in Arabic, and the word Quran means what? A recital or reading. So when the statement says, Inna anzalna Qur'anan, the fact is that we set down a recital, Arabiyan, and a recital that leaves no doubt about what it intends, what it means. لَعَلَّكُمْ, perhaps so that you all can, تَعْقِلُونَ, get an intellect. Y'all can think properly. Right? This is what it means. And so all of that, we can get through just taking the word Arabic language. You understand how we start? You know, you say that Imam Shafi sat up all night thinking about different points that he can extract from the knowledge. And this is called tawfiq. So now, after we're going through the Arabic language, what is the Arabic language made up of? How many sciences are in the Arabic language? There are 13 sciences. The one-word sentences are for who? Come on, people. One-word sentences are for who? Excuse me?
Children.
Children. Is that a one-word sentence?
No.
So, and the reason why I want y'all to make full sentences in class, why? Why is it that I ask you all to, and try to beat you up if you don't give me more than a one-word sentence?
So when we explain it to someone, we can explain it properly.
Right, so you get in the habit of expressing the full thought. Okay, you get in this habit. Don't assume that the person you're speaking to understands what you're talking about. That's an assumption that a teacher cannot make. Okay, so you get in a habit and then you don't have to think about what the expression is. You've already practiced expressing it over and over again. And if you get it wrong, you know you're going to get corrected. So you practice that. The mind that the student comes into the class is that he's in teacher's school. So all of you all are teachers. We used to say back in the day, each one teach one. It was rhetorical back then, but we really mean it. So everyone has the responsibility not just to come to learn for their own benefit, but to raise up ignorance of myself and those around me. As Ibn Uthaymeen said, Ijlis mustaqim. So this is what we're supposed to be doing. So as you practice your teaching skills. So how many sciences are in the Arabic language?
13 sciences in the Arabic language.
Right. Now, what are the most important ones according to me?
The most important ones according to
you
you
are sarf and nahwu.
sarf.
Nahwu wa sarf. It's better if you say what? Sarf and nahwu. Why? You always start off with the most important one. Okay? You start off with the most important, then the second least important. The oldest, then the youngest. Even from the Sunnah, if you name the Sahaba, you should start off with Abu Bakr, then Umar, then Uthman, then Ali. And one of the signs of the people who are Shia and people of Dalala is that they skip Uthman, they name Ali, and then they go to Uthman. They say Abu Bakr, Umar, Ali, and Uthman. And we know this person automatically, he's got some problems in his understanding. Just by that statement. Why? Because he wasn't paying attention to what? To the order that they would come, the order of Fadl, the ones who were better than the next one, according to the people of the first generations. So, anyway, the first two, the best two, in my estimation, the most important, are Sarf and Nahwu. What is Sarf? Ooh, wow.
Etymology is
Astaghfirullah.
the science of the study of the word before it can place in a sentence.
Right. Sarf literally means etymology. What does etymology mean? It's the study of the history of the word. That's what it means in the Greek, Latin, American style. But according to us, when we say etymology, it's the science through which we learn what? How to recognize a word through its shape, right? The shape of the word, before entering that word into a what? Sentence. And it also includes knowing the word by its root letters. Right? How many roots does a word have normally? What?
Words have three.
Normally, words have a 3-letter roots. Okay? Normally, words have a 3-letter roots, but there are some words that have a 4-letter root. That's it. Aslan. Anything else is ziyada. Anything else is extra on that word. Okay? So we should always be searching for those 3 letters or those 4-letter words. Okay? Find out what the root is. And once you know etymology and the word and through its shape, you'll be able to understand, and you have a strong vocabulary understanding what was intended by that word before entering it into the sentence. Now, what is nahwu? What is nahwu? What does nahwu literally mean? When we learned the technique here. Everything is technique, Ranger. What's the first thing you give when you give a definition? There's 2 types of definitions. What are the 2 types of definitions?
Literal. Technical.
They are literal and a technical definition, right? So what's the first one you give?
Literal.
You give the literal definition and then you give the technical definition. This is what we need to do. We need to remember that all time. The technique doesn't change, no matter how many years go by. And this again is a sign of the people of the Sunnah, that you follow, فَقْفُوا مَا قَفَاوْا. You follow the way of those who came before you. So, when we say nahwu, we say, okay, it means what? Grammar. Right? It means grammar. Then after that, now explain to me what you mean when we say grammar.
Changes.
Now, let the Ustadha say. Go ahead.
The changes that happen in the world, or in the changes that happen to the word in the sentence.
That's not clear. You get a majhul as an answer. I don't know if you know it for sure. Who wants to help her out? Faddal Hind. Okay, Faddal, who's next?
The changes that happen at the end of a word after it enters into a sentence.
Okay, usually when somebody drops their voice in the middle of a sentence, that means they got kind of worried about the answer. But he's 100% correct. The word grammar, according to us, means the changes that happen at the ends of a word after entering that word into a sentence. It also includes where that word is placed in that sentence. That's part of the grammar also. Whether it's first, second, third, okay? So that is what we mean when we say grammar. Okay, everybody understand that? Yes. Do you have any questions about that? Now, since those are the most,
Repeat that again. The changes that happen to a word when it's
the ends of the words.
changes that happen.
At the ends of the word. How many roots does a word have?
3.
A word has 3-letter roots. That's what y'all said, right? Okay. So remember the point. Attention to detail. No one-word sentences. So if it has a 3-letter root, then on the 3rd root, you'll see changes happen. The changes, what we mean here, we mean what? What are the changes that happen, Hakeem?
At the end of the word, the last letter in the word,
What happens to the last letter at the word?
it changes depending on what is.
What changes? What changes are we talking about?
Talking about the changes that take place.
What are those changes?
Either a kesra or a
The raf'un, nazbun.
Right, a khafdun, rafun, nasbun, jazmun. Right? So we're talking about a fatha or a dhamma, which are the first 2, right?
The imam.
Right. A fatha, a dhamma, they're the 2 imams, right? Why are they the 2 imams?
Because this is
They lead everybody. They're in every word. Every type of word has a dhamma and a fatha. In fact, what's the asl? What's the foundation for every word? What should it have at the end of it? If it's ismun. Dhamma, 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 right? If it doesn't have a dhamma, something happened. That's if it's an ismun, okay? So just to clarify. Dhamma, dhamma, dhamma. If it doesn't have dhamma, something happened. And then we said a kasra or a sukoon, right? These are the asl. These are fundamental changes that happen at the end of a word, right? And these changes happen why?
because of what the
Because of some grammatical clause, some rule, because of where the word is placed after entering the sentence. That's what we have to study to find out why it changed. Okay? So that was kind of like a trick question. So going further, just going through it, there are things that we have to study. What is the first thing you need to know after learning that those 2 subjects are the most important sciences? What next do you have to learn about the Arabic language? The letters. You have to learn the letters. You can't say you know the language if you're not familiar with the letters in that language. So we started off learning about the letters. Now some people say, oh, you go too far. No, we don't go too far. We don't leave off tawheed, we don't leave off salah and the issues of fiqh to do this, but we do learn them to the point where we need to use them. One time. If you learn it right the first time, you don't have to come back to it. You understand? And that's what happened to the majority of people in America. Most people learned it in their childhood if they're immigrants and they don't remember much about it. Or they didn't learn it if they grew up here and they taught themselves and they don't know if they know the fullness of the issue. Either way, a thorough review is necessary for both peoples here in the United States. Okay? So, we went through it and we're going to cover a few things on each letter that doesn't go too far but doesn't give too little. And that goes what? With Bismillah, give it to me. Can you recite it? No, you can't. So what have you been studying? What does the word study mean? Wow, how can you be a student if you don't know what the word study means? Study means to look at a thing. That's what it means. Over and over again. Until you memorize its literal meaning and what it implies. So if you know what studying is, you will help yourself when you look at a thing. What do you do? What are the actions taken in studying? You look at a thing over and over, pondering over its meanings and memorizing what it says. You may say, no, I don't memorize everything. Yes, you do. You memorize that thing and you never leave it until you memorize it or you don't actually learn it. Anything you can articulate on, you've memorized it. You've put it in your own words, but your own words don't leave the actual meaning of what the other words you read about that subject. So now we know, and that's why the only reason we write it down, the only reason we look up different aspects of it, so that we can understand it fully and keep looking at it. So if we just memorize the first time, we're halfway through the lesson. Then all we have to do is listen. With Bismillah, walhamdulillah. Go ahead.
Blessings on the Prophet. I have my say with you today concerning orthography.
Okay, it says, with Bismillah and alhamdulillah, then blessings on the Prophet. I'll have my say with you today concerning? What is orthographics?
Orthographics, that means...
There's no uhs in the language, unless you're doing negotiations. What does orthographics mean?
Something that's visual, something that can be seen.
Something, break the word down. Ortho means what? It's ortho is from the mouth. What does graphic mean? Visual. Visual. So something that comes from your mouth that's visual, it's just a big word meaning what? The alphabet. It's a big word meaning the alphabet. Because the alphabet is actually supposed to be, not the American alphabet, but in Arabic it is, totally orthographic. Every sound that comes out your mouth has a grapheme, has a visual representative. Okay, that's what it means to be orthographic. The visual representative of an oral sound. Does that make sense? Yes. Say a, ba, ta, tha, ja, ha, kha, da, tha, ra, za, sa, sha, sa, da, ta, dha, a, gha, fa, ta, ka, la, ma, na, ha, wa, ya. Each one of those sounds has a visual representative for it. There are no, like in English, English is not orthographic. Who can tell me how many sounds the letter, the visual letter H has in English?
One.
No, that's not true. You write H one time, but it has two sounds. Say the word heavy.
Heavy.
Now say the word happy. Those are two different sounds. They're both represented with H. You understand? Likewise, the sh sound. Everybody say sh. Is there a visual? Is there an alphabet for that? No. There is no alphabet. And the diphthongs that they make for that, because they have to make up letters two letters together to represent that are many. You can use C, you can use S, you can use SS, you can use TION. You can make a bunch of them. And there's no rule to establish why. Whereas in Arabic, it's totally ebonics. Every sound, every beat is represented by a visual grapheme to let you know to extend, to short, to strengthen. Okay? All of that is there. So it's totally orthographic. That means when something is totally orthographic, that means it facilitates the reading for everyone. These are things about the language that people don't think about. It may sound boring. Am I boring you guys? Okay, I don't want to bore anybody about this. But these are things that we should know about our thing. Next, we're going through the alphabet. He said, with Basmillah, walhamdulillah, then blessings on the Prophet. I'll have my say with you today concerning orthographics. What are the things we're learning? Descriptions, the numerals, points of articulation. That sounds like three things, but if you break it down, it's what? Description. What does a description mean? The actual visual shape of the letter, so you learn how to write it. The actual sifat, the sifat of the letter, right? Like when we learned ib, everybody say ib. Ib. How is the sound articulated?
The lips touch together?
No, not the lips touching together. The sound comes from the release, right? But you have to press them together hard. Say ib. If you don't do it with the description of shidda, you won't, which is strength, you won't pronounce ba. Now say ij. Where is the sound pronounced, articulated? From the release. Now say iqta. Where's the tongue going? It's at the top of your two what? Two buck teeth. Right? Your two front teeth at the gums, right? And it has a release. And how is your mouth formed? Is it open like a doorway or is it round like an egg? Round like an egg. So these things you should know about each letter. So is there a sound in Arabic called ba?
No.
There's no such sound. What's the sound? How do you make sure? By opening your mouth up and down as opposed to making it round mouth. Okay? So, descriptions of their numerals, points of articulation. What are the points of articulation? How many points of articulation does a letter have? What are the 2 points of articulation?
The one is you can put your finger in the mouth and another one.
That's not what I mean. That's a makhraj. That's 2 types of makhraj. What did you say?
One you put your finger on.
That's the same thing he said. That's incorrect. I'm not talking about makhraj. I'm saying points of articulation, which literally means makhraj, but one of them is the makhraj. But the makhraj, here when you say points of articulation, means when the letter is by itself. How you pronounce that letter? Like ib, wa ij, wa it. And the letter after it's placed in a sentence with other letters around it, we call this tajweed. So the point of articulation changes. Anbiya, you see how we did that? Ar-Rahman, you see that? The point of articulation changes when we put it with other letters. Does that make sense? So the points of articulation, they mean that. But then when we get to makhraj, that's another subsection, and we're just dealing with the makhraj. And the makhraj in and of itself is of how many types? 2 types of makhraj. What are the 2 types of makhraj? Haqiqi wa ghayru haqiqi. What does that mean?
One you can put your finger, another one.
Give me one that you can put your finger on. Ib. Okay. Give me another one. It. You see that? You put your finger on it. Now give me one that you cannot put your finger on. Ah. You said alif. Ah. Right. Can you put your finger on that?
No.
Say yeah. Say wah. Those 3 you cannot put your finger on. They're called air letters. Because you cannot, it's air. Ow. Say ow. Right? The letter wa, how was? Whenever someone's saying ow, it's always in that gang. Yanmu. They'll make idgham right after noon. So we know idgham happens after? And we know the letters of the gang for yanmu, idgham is called yanmu. So all these different things we learn from the lottery. Now let me stop right there and leave off the letters because we don't have a board to write on. Let's hear the ajrumiyya. Let's hear it.
إن الكلام عندنا فلتستمع لفظ مركب مفيد قد وضع أقسامه التي عليها يبنى اسم وفعل ثم حرف معنى
فالاسم بالخفض وبالتنوين أو دخول الإضافة فقه مع تفاوت
وبحروف الخفض وهي من إلى وعن وفي وربا والباء وعلى والكاف واللام واو وتا ومذ ومنذ ولعل. Okay, you guys have no rhythm. You get gonged off the what do you call it? That's that thing on the Apollo, man. You guys got to do it with some soul in there. إن الكلام عندنا فلتستمع. I'm gonna do it so that they can hear it on the midya'a. إن الكلام عندنا فلتستمع لفظ مركب مفيد قد وضع أقسامه التي عليها يبنى اسم وفعل ثم حرف معنى فالاسم بالخفض وبالتنوين أو دخول يعرف فقف ما قفوا وبحروف الخفض وهي من إلى وعن وفي وربا والباء وعلى والكاف واللام واو وتا ومذ ومنذ ولعل حتى والفعل بالسين سوف وبقد فاعلم وتأنيث ميزه ورد والحرف يعرف بأن لا يقبل لاسم ولا فعل دليلا كبلا. باب الإعراب. الإعراب تغيير أواخر الكلم تقديرا أو لفظا فذا الحد اغتنم وذلك التغيير للطراب عوامل تدخل في الإعراب أقسامه أربعة تؤم رفع ونصب ثم جزم خفض فالأولان دون ريب وقع في الاسم وفعل المضارع معا نسيت فالاسم قد خصص بالخفض كما قد خصص الفعل بجزم فعلما. It's hard to do السلام. جزاكم الله خير بارك الله فيكم. And that's where you guys are at right there. فالاسم قد خصص بالخفض كما قد خصص الفعل بجزم فعلما. Okay, I had to do that over in my head for me to remember it. Alhamdulillah. Isn't memorization beautiful? Because if you memorize, people can trust you. Okay? People can trust you and they can rely upon you, you know, to help out and to carry that tradition down. And if we make sure our children memorize well, they will become imad, pillars, when they get older. Just like they can do the hickory dickory dock. Well, my children and most of the Muslim children can't do that. But we can do that. We learned that stuff. Hickory dickory dock. Their mouse ran up the clock. You know, all other nonsense. You know. But it's in there. You can't get it out. You teach them the right things at the right time, they won't be able to get it'll be in there. Okay? So let's make sure they get that instead of hickory dickory. Okay? Now, dealing with the ajrumiyya, we're at the babul i'rab. What does i'rab mean? Goes back to the very first lesson.
Clarifying what is happening in the sentence.
Now, give us the definition first and then give us a technical definition. What does al-i'rab mean? What's the root word? Araba. And the alif is ziyada, right? Added emphasis to the word. So al-i'rab is on the same scale of ikhlas. Al-i'rab is on the same scale of Islam. Right? it does to that word what ikhlas does to khalasa. It does to Islam what the word the kasra does to salama. Or salima, I should say. So what does al-i'rab mean? Literally. It literally means, yeah, that will fata. It means to make something clear. A'rabat an nafsiha. The technical or the classical expression for defining the word al-i'rab is a'rabat an nafsiha. The woman expressed what was in herself. And that expression is used because women are known for being very vocal about how they feel. Ma fi nafsiha. A'rabat ma fi nafsiha. Nam? An nafsiha. She spoke about herself. She explained how she felt. So al-i'rab literally is bana wa yubin, is to make something clear in this sentence. What is it making clear? It makes clear what is exactly happening. Okay? And al-i'rab is the definition that's going to come right after it. The technical definition comes in the poet. And it is what? Al-i'rabu taghyiru awakhir al-kalim. Al-i'rab are the changes that take place at the end of a word. Taqdeeran aw lafdan. Literal changes or implied changes or literal changes. You understand that? فَذَا الْحَدْ اغْتَنَمِ. So this definition, take advantage of. وَذَلِكَ تَغْيِيرٌ لِلْتِرَابِ. And that change is ittirab, a darab. Something happened. Something hit it. عَوَامِلَ تَدْخُلُ فِي الْإِعْرَابِ. Some action, some work has entered in the i'rab, in the whole of the sentence, in the expression or the clarity of the sentence. Okay? أقسامه أربعة تؤم. First he says, أقسامه أربعة. That's it. That ends that thought. How many? Its parts are 4. How many parts are i'rab? That is very, very important. There are only 4 parts of i'rab. Tu'ammu, the 2 imams, or the 2 ummah of these 2, are raf'un wa nasbun. Okay? Those are the first 2. Those are the most important 2. Then it says, thumma. Thumma tadullu ila tarahi. Thumma means then. What does then mean? We learned this too before. What does then mean? It means a little while after. What does it mean when we use it in speech? When we use it in speech, it means of lesser grade or not at the same level. For example, when we said that Shadid and Hakim came in the room, then Makin. What does that tell us?
It's later on another third one.
Later on, right? So we say Shadid and Ayub graduated at the top of the class. Then Abu Tawbah. Did he graduate? Did Abu Tawbah graduate at the top of the class? No, it doesn't mean that he graduated at the top of the class at all. Then Abu Tawbah came. You understand? Doesn't mean he's at the top. Do you understand what that statement means then? So it says, tu'ammu rafun wa nasbun thumma.
The lesser comes after thumma.
Right, the lesser comes after thumma. The example we have preceding this is what? Ismun wa fi'lun thumma harfun nasbun. Thumma harfun ma'na. Right? So we have ismun wa fi'lun thumma. So we know that the harf is not on the same level as the ismun wa fi'lun. Right? Why not?
That's a weaker one. That's right.
Because it's not independent.
What? Because it's what?
It's not
It's not
independent.
independent. What do we mean by a word being independent?
It doesn't need other words to define it or to...
It doesn't need other words to define it. To define what it intends, what it means. Right? So that we call that a word that has a meaning in and of itself. Or we call it a word that is independent of other words in order to define it. But a harf is a word that is what? It's dependent on other words. It needs other words in order to
To complete the...
complete its meaning. Give me a word that's dependent. Is. No. Is not dependent. Under. Why isn't is dependent? Why is it is dependent? It's a verb. That's right. It's the be word. The be words in every language are the most comprehensive words in that language. Okay? Very defining. So it doesn't need help. Is means are. Like my son said the other day, he said, I know where our are. Well, they're learning the language. I know where our are. He's using the, he knows the be verb, just not how to use it just yet. Right? Our are, our, us, we, and all that other stuff like that. Anyway, actually that's not the be word, that's the us, the nahnu. Okay, going back to the point. So the other two are jazmun, what do you call it? Khaftun jazmun. Okay? So the khaftun and jazmun is the kasra and the sukun. Okay? فَلَوَّلَانِ دُونَ رَيْبٍ وَقَعَ. So the first two, without any doubt, فَلَوَّلَانِ دُونَ رَيْبٍ وَقَعَ. Without any doubt entering into the first two, فِي الْإِسْمِ وَفِعْلُ الْمُضَارِيًا مَعًا. They're in the ism and the fi'l al-mudari. Now we have a term that we didn't know before. What is a fi'l al-mudari? Can anybody tell me what a fi'l al-mudari? Does anybody know?
Fi'l al-mudari is a past tense verb.
No. A fi'l al-mudari, he said, is a past tense verb. No, that is incorrect. However, I will explain. There are three types of verbs that we mainly work with. One is called fi'lul amri. Everybody say fi'lul amri. The other one is called fi'lul madi. A past tense verb. Right? Mada. And then we have the third one, which is called a fi'lul mudari. Okay, now mudari, okay? First we have to understand that word. Mu in front of a word means what? Say it again, guys. One who possesses the quality of the rest of the, whatever the word comes. So what does dara'a mean? Dara'a means to be similar to. It means mithla. It means like. We're getting to something here. Remember, you're learning Arabic from a way other people don't learn it. You're learning it from its soul. Okay? So understand, a fi'lul mudari is a verb. Fi'lun is a verb, right? Action word, right? That is like. Like what? Okay, like what? Why is it called fi'lul mudari? The other one's called the fi'lul amr, an order. The other one's called fi'lul madi, a past tense. Why is this called? This is a fi'lun that's like something else. I'll explain. A fi'lul amri is in i'rab. We're studying what? In i'rab are the changes that happen at the ends of the words. We're dealing with fi'lun. A fi'lul amri, the end of the word, will always have a sukun. Ijlis, uskut, qum, idhab, idhabu, ijlisu, idrusu, udrusu, iqra, iqra'u. All these words end with a sukun or at the end of them. Do you understand that? Does everybody understand that? So we know fi'lul amri, order, a verb that's in order, because at the end of it, it has sukun. Okay? Ayub, arja ila makanik. Says it, Ayub, arja, return, raja. I didn't say arja'u, arja, the sukun, so that was an order. Now, a fi'lul madi will always have at the end of it a fatha for the most part. It'll have a fatha. Jalasa, qara'a, ra'a, nadara, daraba, masha, dhahaba, alima wa salima. Okay? This is going to have a fatha at the end. The only other time it'll have something at the end other than that is if you add, like, if it's a woman, you say jalasat. Nadarat. You have the ta at ta'neeth. The feminine ta at the end. Mayzuhu warat. It's clarified because you can see it written. You know? Or dhahabu. They left. And the waw is there. Waw al-jama' to pluralize the word. Waw always pluralizes the word. So no matter what you think, you see a waw at the end, it's plural. Okay? So that's always going to have a fatha at the end. However, the fi'lu mudari doesn't have anything that you could just say it has this at the end of it. Its ends change. Its ends what?
Change.
So let's look at something. A word is going to be of two types now. A word is going to be of what?
Two types.
Now we're dealing with i'rab. With regards to i'rab, a word has what? How many types? With regards to i'rab, a word has how many types? With regards to i'rab, a word has how many types? No. My point is to get you to say the whole sentence. With regards to i'rab, a word has how many types?
With regard to Islam,
has two types.
Okay. One type is called mabni. Everybody say that.
Mabni.
Mabni. Mabni. Mabni. Mabni. Mabni is ma in front of a word means what? A place. Right? That's right. Y'all diamond always making sarf. Wa alaikum salam. The rest of the word is bana. What is bana? What is an ibn?
The sun.
A son. What is so mabni is from the word son. But a mabna is a building, a construction, a solid structure. So a word is called mabni because it's constructed in one form. And that form doesn't change. Do you understand that? So it's mabni on a sukoon, or it's mabni on a fatha. A fi'lul amr is mabni on what? A fi'lul amr is mabni on what?
Is mabni on sukoon.
A fi'lul amr is, my teacher used to say, I hate adult teachers. I mean adult students. He said, I hate adult students. You remember when he said that? His teacher used to say that. I hate adult students. He says, why? Because they don't study good enough and you can't hit them. You know what I'm saying? You know, you can't encourage them like that. And they be like, no, I'm just going to leave. With children, you can scare them and stuff like that. You get ready to hit a dog, they go, oh, go ahead, hit me. But if you really pop them, you be like, oh man, I'm out of here. My bag. Anyway, a fi'l amri is mabni on a sukoon. Now? اذهب إلى الحمام. So, a fi'l madi is mabni on a fatha. Go show him where the hammam is, okay? Ayyub Ijlis. Fadl. Take him. Yeah, I'm sorry, the bathroom, yes.
Let's go.
There's no bathroom here? Is there one downstairs?
Take him upstairs. Take him upstairs.
Yeah, take him upstairs then, please. So, a fi'l madi is mabni on a fatha. Say that again.
A fi'l madi is mabni on fatha.
A fi'l madi is mabni on a with a fatha. Do you understand that? A past tense verb is always going to have a fatha at the end of it. You with me? What are you saying?
I'm repeating it.
Okay. A past tense verb will always have a fatha at the end of it. This is the asl, okay? We're dealing with fundamentals. The fundamental is a sukoon and a fatha. Now, fi'lul mudari. Now, hold it. Before we go, let's go to the ism. An ism. Everybody say ism. An ism, it changes. Didn't we say earlier? We said, Ja'a mukhlisun. Say that word. Ja'a mukhlisun. Ra'aytu mukhlisan. Ra'aytu mukhlisan. Marartu bi mukhlisin. Marartu bi mukhlisin. You see the ends change? We said, let's say again, let's say Zaydun. Zaydun. Zaydan. Zaydan. Zaydin. You see those changes that happened at the end? That is for an ism. So an ism is mu'arab. Say that. There are two types of words with regards to i'rab. One is mabni and one is mu'arab. What does mu'arab mean? What is mu in front of a word?
One possesses the rest of the word.
Okay, so what is mu'arab? You guys know the word.
Who possesses wrong?
Araba. It possesses clarity. It possesses changes. It changes from dhammatan to fathatan to kasratan based on its placement. That's what happens with an ism. But the fi'lun, they don't do that, do they? They're both mabni, right? Except the fi'lul mudari. Because the fi'lul mudari is called the verb that is like the ism. Why? Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Because a fi'lul madi is mabni on a fatha. A fi'lul madi is, fi'lul amri is mabni on a sukoon. A fi'lul madi is mabni on a fatha, right? And a fi'lul mudari is like the ism. So it's called the fi'lun that's like the ism. That's what mudari means. Mudari means it's like the ism, in that its ends change. So we say yaf'alu wa yaf'ala wa yaf'al. Everybody say that. Yaf'alu, yaf'ala, yaf'al. You see that? But see, when we get to the end of the poem, it says فَالِسْمُ قَدْ خُصِّصَ بِالْخَفْتِ. So the ism, the only difference between the ism and the fi'l mudari is that the ism قَدْ خُصِّصَ, that the ism has been specialized, has been favored, is given us a special thing. And the special thing in the ism is that قَدْ خُصِّصَ بِالْخَفْتِ. With khafti, it has a kasra. Just like the fi'l قَدْ خُصِّصَ بِالْجَزْمِ, that the fi'l mudari has a sukoon at the end of it. And the asma, the ism, will never have a sukoon. Okay? It will always have a fathatan, a dhammatan, or a kasratan. Does that make sense? You can't see it on the board because we didn't write it, but follow me. If you can follow me. أقول قولي هذا استغفر الله لي ولكم. Do you have any questions?
No.
Yeah, you said that. You have to go repeat that, huh? Does that make sense?